So cocktails and conversation.
Cocktails and convo.
Yes. Cheers to all that.
Cheers to all that.
So I just want to talk about, because we talk about this a lot, the journey.
The journey.
Kind of where, because I think most people usually see kind of where someone ends up and they don't see where you start and all the things you go through to get there. And you get to the end and it's like, oh, you're so lucky because you've got this. But they don't see the whole process. You know, I heard once people will cheer you at the very beginning, like, hey, you're starting this, yeah, good luck. And then at the very end, hey, congratulations, you're successful, but it's all the middle part that they never see. Yeah.
That's a story.
Yep.
There's a lot of stories in there.
So I know I guess, let's just go back kind of how we started and, as far as, when you purchased your first house and then you sort of transitioned and then we had that having beers one day and talking about what you wanted to do.
The beginning was in 2006 when I bought that house in Venner. Mm-hmm. You gave me the first loan for that in 2006, and then we kind of reconvened when I started this whole Airbnb thing, and I guess that was like 2017 or so, something like that.
And I remember, do you remember what you said what your objective was, what you wanted to do?
I was thinking about that on the way down here today, and I couldn't remember what it was, but it was what felt very reasonable at the time, and you gave me a number that felt very unreasonable.
I remember it was, I'm making X in this business, and I'd just like to make that and replace it.
Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where you wanted to start, and then...
And you were like, think 10X.
And then I'm like, no, I think, yeah. Then you got a little sampling and a taste of what you were able to do on the short-term rental thing. Yeah. And then I think the conversation grew from that.
I just remember, I thought you were kind of crazy. I was like, I don't know about this guy. I don't even remember exactly where I was at that point, but I do remember, now that you say that, I think I just wanted to replace my photography business.
Yep.
With my photography business income, I want to replace that with short-term rental income. And and you said, you got to think bigger than that. And I said, okay, maybe 1.5 times my photography business. No, 10X. And we were at Rock Cut Brewing, bringing a couple of beers.
Yep.
And
I said, I have a number in mind. I said, I'm not sure if I should tell you, but I think this is your potential as far as where you could go. I think that got your wheels turning and everything as far as that entrepreneurial spirit. And you're like, ooh, yeah, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
So
for the love of the game.
So from having one property where you were renting out the basement to sort of where you at now. So kind of walk me through the evolution of what you did as far as properties and then how you help other people.
How to boil that down. So, I had my one basement apartment in 2016. I was still a wedding photographer. I still am a wedding photographer, but I think I'm just holding on to that idea. I'm not really a wedding photographer anymore. I'll shoot weddings. So that was in 2016. When that started, I remember this kid was living in my basement. I just had a regular long-term rental, and he moved out, and I thought, wow, let me see what this Airbnb thing is all about. And I remember it was October 4th, the first person checked in, and I didn't have a vacancy until the 30th of October. Actually, I guess maybe my first vacancy was Halloween night. And I had every single night booked, and I was like, hold up, what's this all about, And so at that point, it really got, as you said, got the wheels turning. And I think in 2017, I still had the wedding photography income, and then I had my Airbnb income, and I just took all the Airbnb income and put it into a savings account to buy another house. And when I had enough money to make a down payment, back when I could buy a house for $300,000 in Estes Park, I bought another one, and then I had 2 income streams. I bought a third one, 4 income streams, bought a fourth one, and it just kept on going until COVID hit. And actually right before COVID hit, I had enough homes that I couldn't really handle them and do the photography business any longer. So at that point, I hired a manager and let that roll for probably about 8 months. And then COVID hit. And I remember, I lost 2 years of photography work basically overnight. I couldn't shoot family portraits in the park because the park was closed. We couldn't have gatherings. I couldn't, like, tourism to Estes was shut down. So even if people could come up here, they couldn't go into the park, but even if they came up here just to shoot, like didn't have anywhere to stay. They weren't even supposed to come up here, blah, blah, blah. So I remember calling you in a panic.
Yeah, I remember that.
Being like, what am I going to do, Rich?
Yeah, where am I? I'm right outside. Can I come in?
And I had, and I had all these mortgages to pay and zero income. And I was in a bit of a panic. But we refinanced. And just the timing, that was perfect because, I skipped a payment in the refinance thing. And it was a 3-month downtime. And I had enough money to weather, a little bit of a storm. And then the world opened up and everybody on earth came up to Estes Park, and at that point it was, that was in late May of 2020. And we took on our first outside client in, I think, June or July of 2020. And so that was our first outside client. And now, we have 100 properties that we manage.
Well, that's pretty quick from those few years.
5 years and change. And as you know, we're about to hopefully acquire another management company that'll take us to 120 properties managed, with $12 million in total sales next year. I'm hoping, probably, I don't even know, 10 to 12,000 reservations a year. Probably something like 50,000 guests, something like that.
Yeah, that's turning into a
It's a thing.
pretty large enterprise for around here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just going back a little bit. So as far as acquiring the properties, sort of how you handled that, because you were making money and then you had money, some savings from the profits and that type of thing. And then if I recall, weren't we freeing up some of the equity in property and using that?
Yep, we did a couple cash outs along the way.
Yep, and then put that into, so turned one asset into two assets or multiple assets.
Yep. I think, it was, the cash outs helped. And then also it was just interesting to watch my mindset during this acquisition phase. Like, I'm kind of done with the acquisition phase. Now it's just like, I want to focus on the management side. But when I was buying the homes, the first one was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. It's one thing to buy a house for yourself, but it's another one to buy a house as like an investment. And then, but it worked out. And then the second one, you kind of relax a little bit. And by the third or the fourth one, I was just like, making offers sight unseen, just because I knew what was going to happen. And, the last couple acquisitions that I made, I was like excited about it. That was a huge turning point to realize that, even with this hotel that we just bought, like even that, like that's a really big deal. I wouldn't have been able to sleep for nights in the beginning because I was afraid. And now I couldn't sleep for nights because I was excited about it. And that's a huge, just mental shift as you kind of grow your business.
Yeah. And I think I think that's just sort of the evolution you go through in that process. I always tell people, like, your first one's the hardest one because you're learning everything.
Yep.
And I hear that from a lot of clients, like, oh, I'm really scared and nervous. And I'm like, well, that's good. You should be. Because as you've done them, you continue to do these, you started to learn more and more. And then that's why, and you got very good at analyzing properties.
Yeah.
Like, I found one. Let's run the numbers. So I think another point to that is, when you're finding properties, there's times where you're going through a bunch of properties. Well, this looks good, and then you were running the numbers, analyzing it, and it just didn't quite fit the criteria.
Yeah.
And so you had the willingness to move on until you found what was a right fit.
Yep. The best deal that I found along the way was that place on Eagle Cliff, where I bought a house with an apartment above a garage. And so I let the house run as a rental for like 5 or 6 years, and along the way, I always knew that there was this apartment that I could remodel and turn it into something else. And eventually I did when I had the money to do it. And, by the time I got to that point, I kind of already knew what it took to make a property perform, what it took to make a property convert, how to get bookers, like what kind of interior design would work, blah, blah, blah. So I took, when I finally had the money to remodel the apartment, I kind of went overboard and spent an unreasonable amount of money on that redesign and that remodel. But the thing is, like, it paid back in spades, and I paid all that back in, basically 12 months. And so now I've got this property that I bought for 500, and I put like an extra 150,000 into it, and it's probably worth, I don't know, 1.8, something like this.
So a good investment to start putting your money someplace where you know you're going to get a appropriate return. But it's a little scary because you didn't know
totally
like how this was going to actually turn out. Am I spending too much money?
Yeah.
Which also makes you, I better figure out real quick how to maximize all this, how to make sure I'm getting all my units booked out, maximizing the annual nights of rent, figuring out all the algorithms, the math, and how all the systems work to be successful. I think that's a part that you've mastered more than I've seen many people on that, is you've figured out that piece as opposed to just renting it. You're like, I figured out the piece that's sort of the switch that makes everything really work and makes everything profitable for you and whoever property you're managing.
I think as you get older, like timelines get put into perspective. And the other day I was thinking about this because somebody called me up and he wanted to take me out to coffee to pick my brains about, what we do and how we do it and all this stuff. And he wanted me to basically spill the beans.
Tell me all of it.
Tell me all of it. And it dawned on me that at that point, like, I have a master's degree in journalism, and I spent a year and a half, and my master's probably cost me $20,000. And at this point, I have spent so much more time and so much more money on like the short-term rental education that like it absolutely dwarfs the investment that I've made into my like formal education, both in time and money. So I was thinking about that, and I'm like, you know what, dude, I'm not giving this to you for a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Well, I think even if you told him everything, he wouldn't know how to apply it. I mean, he might be able to take some of it, but you've been through that process and you know where everything fits and stuff like that, and whether or not someone would be able to utilize it. But to your point, it's like now you have this deep knowledge set as far as how to make something successful.
Yeah.
So there's definitely value there.
And, and it's like, it's really complicated. So, you can implement one thing, but that thing isn't going to even work out unless you implement these 10 other things that feed the one thing that you're implementing, so you're right. I could tell people how to do it, but it's not going to really work.
Yeah. Well, just tell me the one thing that I just have to do so I make all this money. And it's usually, well, it's not quite that simple or easy. Yeah. I've had people even in my business is like, I just want to do what you're doing. I said, well, you didn't see all the time and effort that came before it to get to that place, to understand how everything works and how all the pieces fit together.
I remember, when this started, like we had our basement apartment, and then I bought a place, and, in this acquisition thing, we were just buying like these just absolutely totally run down homes, complete dumps. I'm surprised that we even got funding to buy them in the first place because they were so crappy.
I don't know where you'd find somebody to do that.
But, I remember, my wife and I got into this one house, and, we didn't have money to do anything except do it ourselves. And we're like, all right, well, we're just going to watch YouTube videos and figure out how to redo literally everything. And I can't tell you how many times in the middle of winter, I just threw my tools up in the air and walked down the road in a snowstorm with my middle fingers up, pointing back at that house, as we've like torn out walls and torn out the floor and all this stuff. But what's cool is that now, I've gotten deep in a number of homes, like deep. And now when we call in like the cavalry and a really good contractor comes in, I kind of already know how much it's going to cost, and so I already know how much he's going to bill me. And I also already know what that ROI on paying that guy is going to be worth. And like, that's a pretty cool skill to have. And I wouldn't have ever got to that point unless I'd done all this stuff myself, So that's kind of invaluable. And I think that's going to serve me as we continue down this, road wherever it leads. So
there's a lot of hard work. Was there ever time where you said, I don't want to do this anymore, this is hard?
All the time.
Or you're getting like nervous, like, oh my God, this is like getting big, and like wow, do you know what my mortgage payments are every month? I mean, I know the answer, but I mean,
So
how does that
I don't know
make you
if
feel,
know.
and how do you
Totally.
get across that chasm?
I don't know if you remember. I don't know if I told you this, but when I went to that Mastermind thing that I went to in Mexico, I'm not kidding. I went there, and all these people, there's like 10 or 15 CEOs, and they're all talking about how they wanted to grow their business and make it bigger and better and take on more properties and all this stuff. And I was just, I showed up, and I was just like, all I want to do is sell this. I am here because I hate it and I want to quit. And I don't know why I went to a mastermind just with that mindset. I think it was like, how can I get out of it like intelligently?
I want to hear from other people to justify why I want to get out of it, because I'm not sure they're going to tell me about how miserable it is and stuff like that. And
that's probably a lot of it. But then you go there and you meet all these people with their inspiring businesses and their inspiring stories, and the next thing you know, you're like, oh my God, all right. And I think when I went there, I think the requirement was that you did like $1 million in revenue a year, $1 million in rental a year, and here we are, more than 10x again. I showed up and I just got so inspired by all these businesses. I remember this one girl had bought, what was it called? She bought the Hicksville Trailer Palace. One of the coolest Airbnbs. It's not even one Airbnb. It's this whole development of just like these, like the coolest trailers you've ever seen. And it's out in Joshua Tree, just like this super, super funky, neighborhood of like weird trailers. And I was like, I want to do that. And then I talked to the next guy and he's got like 200 doors in Florida. I was like, I want to do that, because they've optimized operations. And then I met another guy who, built his own laundry company. And I was like, oh my God, I want to do that too. And then I met another guy who built it, and like this guy.
I want to do it all now.
Totally. I met another guy and he had built his own cleaning company. And what he did was that when, so he had like a little bit lame, but he had third-party cleaners. And so he would put, like a support your local business message in the Airbnb message threads after the guests checked out. And so even though his cleaning company didn't clean the home, he took the credit for it. And so over the course of a year, he built up the reviews of this cleaning company and got like 1,000 reviews. And at that point, then he started the cleaning company. Because he was getting the reviews for all the,
Beforehand, yep. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's kind of lame, but it's also a good idea as well.
It's kind of sneaky smart.
Yeah, and at the end of it all, I left and I'm like, oh man, all right, let's just go home. And the next thing I knew, we just kept on ramping up and ramping up and ramping up. And now I'm actually super excited about it. I don't want to sell quite yet, but I'm like architecting the exit down the line.
Yes, I think that was the other thing, because I think that's where people struggle, is they don't see where the end destination is. And we've had lots of conversations about that as far as like, where is this all going? And you need to have some sort of target.
Yeah.
So if I have a target and I have a time frame, and then I think that gives you the ability to like, oh, well, now I know I can work really hard for this amount of time because I know what's the end destination.
Yeah.
And so I got something to shoot for, as opposed to where a lot of people just work the business and then get sort of comfortable or complacent in what they're doing.
Yeah. And
then it never grows anywhere. And then they eventually start to burn out, and then the business sort of fades away that way.
I think, burnout comes from not getting anywhere. Like, it's just like this zero-sum game and nothing's really happening. And you're just kind of chugging along. You're not making any more, you're not making any less, and it just feels like work. But, when you're building something and expanding, like every day is a new challenge, you're constantly engaged, you're like really, really creative on the business side. And so, like, of course I wake up and I'm just like, oh my God. Even today I woke up, I told you this, like I woke up and I got a call from an owner because there was a party at his house. Like, this is actually a cool story. So I woke up, I'm drinking my coffee, hanging out with my wife and the dogs, and everything's fine. And this owner calls me at 7 a.m. and he's like, I'm like, hey, how you doing? And he's like, not so good. I'm like, oh no, what happened? And so he told me about the party at his house. And of course, I don't know because I'm not in operations. So my whole team knows all about it, but I haven't gotten caught up yet. And so my whole day has been trying to figure out how to squash parties. And even that process is actually kind of cool, And so what we discovered was that it was a local guy who booked last minute, who paid a lower rate, who stayed for a night. And I was like, well, why don't we just design some sort of like algorithmic flag or trigger that like alerts us when these reservations happen. And it's kind of like, why didn't I think about that years ago? You know, but now we actually have all these tools and like API endpoints and connections from our management software where we can actually start to build out like our own recipe for what would cause a flag and a trigger and make us go look at the reservation. And so now, you know, we're going to be able to, you know, calculate length of stay, number of bedrooms, number of guests that are allowed in the property, number of cars that are allowed in the property, you know, how much that property is on a per bed count, you know, at the last minute, blah, 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 blah. And then we're just going to get an alert from some sort of thing that an AI can build for me. And that's what I've been spending my day doing. And that's cool.
So you're not, I think this is an important part, is you're not working in the business. Now you're working more on the business and you're, hey, here's a problem, let's find a solution. And now you're creating something that's tailor made to your business. Now you're creating intellectual property within the business that has a lot of value to it, especially going forward. Because now you're doing stuff that's different than everybody else. Because like you said, everybody else tends to get stuck because they hit with it, you know, they basically hit that ceiling of complexity and then they don't know how to move forward. And then it just kind of goes flat. In your situation, it's like, ooh, this is...
Like, I love this stuff.
This looks exciting. I've got, there's another problem. I can figure it. It's like a puzzle. I can figure it out now. And, and then you figure that out and great, now I'm now looking for the next thing.
Yeah. And, you know, it's like so nice to be able to offload the daily operations to like an incredibly talented and reliable team that I don't even know what they do all day long. But they don't know what I do, and I don't, you know, it's kind of good. That's kind of the ideal situation for us because like they can do their thing, I can do my thing. I kind of do sales at this point and problem solving and strategy, and they just steer the ship. And whatever the strategy is, they make whatever happens adhere to that strategy. And like I knock on wood, nobody quits. Like I love this team and it's amazing. And you know, that's another thing that I've learned over the last couple of years is the value of finding the right people, paying them well, hoping they don't leave, keeping them around, and having them like really be invested in what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. I think those are a couple of key things. Pay them well, find the right people, and learning how to let go. Again, that's when you're growing. Most people are like, well, I'll just do more.
Yeah.
And then I'll hire someone, but I'll still do more, I'll micromanage. But I think that's something you've done well, because I think you've got some really good people where you've let them take over a lot of different things, let them manage it, let them run it. Hey, if there's an issue, let me know, and then we'll figure out how you will solve it. And then
like I'm to the point where when somebody who works for me introduces me as their boss, I correct them and say I'm this person's business partner, you know, because that's the way I look at it. I can't do that without them. And yeah, like I've pushed so much responsibility and judgment calls, like they're their own thing.
Yeah, and you've got some.
It's kind of like leave me alone so I can do my thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I'll leave you alone so you can do yours.
And that's a difficult place for a business owner to get to. But once you can do that, and then it starts freeing up all your time, and then that's I think where you start getting more of your exponential growth going forward.
Totally. Yeah.
So I think that is a big deal. So if you could share a little bit, so how did P Capital Mortgage or Wealth Warrior X or High Country Double Diamond, so what role did we play in this as part of your journey, or what could you speak to that?
I think probably one of the biggest things is just coming in with a deal and laying it on the table. It's the call, Rich, show me the money. And like to have that backing and trust that whatever crazy thing that I've got is going to work out, like, is kind of invaluable. You know, like I can't, like if I had to battle the banking system on every single opportunity I had, I don't think I would have taken advantage of them all. But if I get to come in and just be like, look, this is going to work. I know it's going to work. And then the other person says, I believe you, then I can just go after whatever I want to go after. And so that to me is like, not a lot of people have that. That's huge.
Yeah, and I think we also making sure we're in alignment, making sure appropriate decisions were being made and all that stuff.
Totally.
for what your ultimate objective and goals were.
Yeah.
So we were able to help with financing when you needed it.
Yeah. every single time, versus, there's how many like random internet bankers are there out there that have no idea what our market is, have no expertise in our rental market, our real estate market. Like they have no idea. So then it's just a bunch of numbers on paper that like maybe they don't understand. And I mean, at the end of the day, everything's a bunch of numbers on paper. But to have like a local expert who knows all these things and can like back your ideas is, like I said, that's huge.
So what about on was it an easy process with the last acquisition with the hotel? As far as, hey, Rich, I want to do this. Did it take months and endless amounts of paperwork, or how was that process as far as how we provided for you?
I said, Rich, I want to do this, and you said, sure. And the next thing I knew, I had a loan.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally what happened. Versus, I can't even imagine doing this without that kind of relationship. Actually, it would be such a pain in the butt. Like I said, I probably wouldn't do it because I would be like, I got stuff to do. I got a business to run. I got these parties to figure out how to end. I got, like this person wants to come on board and they want me to redesign their property, and then this person, like this guest is having this other problem and blah blah blah, and like if I had to go through like that, like all of this stuff, like, okay, let me back up. You have all my finances. You have it in a file. You know what's going on. Every year I send you my tax returns. And so like when an opportunity arises, I can just be like, here it is. And you already know what's going on. I don't have to reapply to another mortgage, blah, blah, blah. And so I can focus on running my business and scaling my business. And then I can let like you just decide if you want to lend on a new project. And it's that simple. But that comes from a multi-year relationship and your understanding of what I do.
Yep. As far as, again, where you were taking all of it and making sure we were on the correct path. And
yeah.
But then again, we start because you'd call me, hey, Rich, I got a deal.
Yeah.
Can I come in? And you're like, this is what I'm thinking. Okay, let's look at it.
Well, you've talked me off a number of cliffs also.
Yep.
So that helps too. Probably would have lost a lot of money if I hadn't come in and like run through whatever crazy idea I had at the time.
Yeah, I know we've gone through deals where we've gone down and reviewed it, and it's just found that sometimes they just weren't a fit.
Yeah.
And I think we're both in agreement, like, yeah, I think this isn't the best place. And you're like, yep, we'll let it go. And then you go find another one.
Yeah.
Because there's a time frame where you could find a lot of easier deals. And then there's been a time frame where it was just harder to find the ones where the math worked and you're getting the right return on your money and your investment, and something that fits into all your criteria as far as what you're trying to do.
Back to that last question you asked about, like, okay, so we talked about the lending side, but like Wealth Warrior, just having a group of people in a town is also kind of invaluable. And it like, I remember when I went to Mexico and I was like, I'm going to spend all this money to go to this mastermind in Mexico with a bunch of people I don't know, just to be around people. Like, why do I got to spend money to just be around people? That just seemed kind of ridiculous. But, what happened out of that was I don't know, that was, my ROI on that was like, it's hard to say because it's, you make, each year you make more because of it. So it's at least 20, maybe 30, I don't know, at the end of the day. And it's just going to keep growing. And it's the same thing and it's the same thing in Wealth Warrior, we show up and even we had a septic system fail. And so here I have a guy sitting next to me at the table who does excavation. And if I need to call him and ask him for his opinion, he's going to help me out. And he did. And, the septic system in this town is $55,000. And to have a guy here, who I can just ask questions for is...
When you want me to show up.
Yeah.
Because you're in the same group and you're collaborating with everything. And
I think it's hard to justify. It's sort of like, when you start this whole entrepreneur journey, it's hard to justify the first purchase. It's hard to justify education because that's not even a tangible thing. At least when you buy a home and you put all this money into an object. But when you're buying education, that's really hard to square in the beginning. You're like, okay, so I'm just going to spend all this money to show up with a bunch of dudes in Mexico and drink a margarita and talk about it. But like that's invaluable. And the same thing with the one here as well, the one that you're running. It's like once you come to understand that there's tremendous value in education and like a community, then it's like a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think you got other people going through the same thing.
You're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You're in your own education thing. We're all in an education thing.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's invaluable, especially when you start to know your path. That's something I invest in a lot, just because I know the return I'm going to get on it.
Yeah.
Just to think bigger and bigger all the time. I think you need
so
that.
Question to you: Did you have questions when you started investing in your own professional journey? Were you like, I'm not buying a house, I'm not buying a thing, I'm just buying like an opportunity to learn?
Yeah, I think for a while you hear it and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to get out of it. It's just someone talking. And then you finally you do the first one, and then you just get in the room with the people. Yeah. And again, with the stories you share, and then it starts to open up. Because a lot of times when you're doing that entrepreneurial thing, a lot of times you're like, I'm different. I don't fit in. Yeah. Why do I even think this way? Yeah. And then you get in these rooms that are like, oh my goodness, there's all these other people that are in the same place as I am. All these other people are willing to go through the pain and the suffering, and how do I grow? And I don't accept mediocrity. I don't want to accept average. I have the abilities, or to be able to reach your potential as far as what you can achieve and the value you can provide other people and stuff like that in the future, and to be able to go on through that process and get to the end, and hopefully at the end look back and say, yep, I did everything I could up to my ability and my potential, and I have no regrets because of what I led. I didn't take the easy path. No. So I think also when we get in the Wealth Warrior X, when we've had getting together. And again, you kind of at the beginning of the meeting, everyone's like, oh, okay, this is a grind. Yeah, okay, what are we going to do? But at the end, you can start to see where everyone starts to go, oh my goodness, I've got these ideas now. I had some sort of lock somewhere in my business and I couldn't figure it out. And this person over here just made a comment. I didn't even think about it, and like, that's it. That's the piece that I've been overlooking because I couldn't see it. And this person has just gone through it and he figured it out, and like, oh, that's going to change everything. That's now I can go to the next step or the next level.
I remember as a photographer, I would just like there is value in just spending some money to learn a new skill or talk to a new person or look at something differently. And I remember when drones first came out, and I was just like, you know what? Like, I just want to buy a drone just to see a different perspective. The next time I know, I'm flying a drone around, at 500 feet in the air, and I see the world differently. And then, and I take that, eagle in the sky view, and the next thing I know, I'm like climbing trees, shooting down from trees with still cameras, just because, I just kind of wanted to spend a little money and see like what was out there. I feel like it's kind of the same thing with these groups sometimes, like once you hear this different perspective, it completely changes everything. And all it takes is some basic little comment that you didn't think of. And it's like, oh my God, like actually in my business, this is like $1 million idea. And it's like so simple, but I never would have thought of it.
Yeah, like, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
So what's the future for Nathan, and what's your next objective, and then and where do you see yourself longer term, 10 years?
Oh God.
Because I know your wheels are turning all the time.
Yeah. I'm sure my team thinks I'm super annoying because it's always sort of Jekyll and Hyde. This is it, guys, I promise. The next thing you know, we're buying a hotel and like taking over something. They're just like, oh, this guy. I don't know how they put up with it, but it's really cool that they're along for the ride too. And they're excited for change and growth. I have no idea. Like I said, I right now I'm focused on laying the foundation for an eventual sale. And I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't happen. because I might not want to do that. Maybe we're like crushing and we wind up franchising, you know, and growing this thing into different states. And, you know, we've talked a lot about doing development projects and building, you know, like Airbnb sort of communities. And that's something I never would have thought I was going to do. So, you know, I say that I want to sell this thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if we just build it up so that it runs itself, the wolf runs itself, and then I can really, really focus on my own timeline on trying to build, like I said, like a development that is, you know, that wouldn't be stressful. Like I want the wolf to be so successful that I can execute a vision on like non-stressful terms. That's probably what's going to happen.
You sort of have that dream project out there as far as like with that community.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if I can just come in with, you know, no pressure, stuff like that, and build something that's highly viable and creates this amazing experience for guests and all that type of thing.
Yeah. But I also want to I want to turn the wolf into something like world class, and we're on our way to that. So we'll see. I don't know.
And there's a lot of ideas, but I think as you grow, and I think at some point it's hard, and you get times it's frustrated. But then there's also it can be fun because there's the creative things. Oh, I've got an idea, and sometimes it's like you go through it and you're like, okay, maybe that's not a fit. But sometimes like, ooh, you know, we were just talking beforehand. It's like, I have $100 billion idea.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh,
I mean,
so that gets you excited.
Yeah. I would love to actually just have some time to learn how to program. I know that AI can help us do that, but if I could take it 2 years off and just learn how to program stuff and build my own things that I think about, like, that'd be cool. I have no idea. I don't know. Like I said, this is a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde kind of back and forth. You know, part of me wants to get out of this whole thing and just go chop wood in the, chop wood in the woods, and the other half of me knows I'll be bored out of my mind.
Yeah, for like a few weeks, and you get the itch, and you're
like, what am I doing?
Oh, yeah,
This sucks.
Yeah, I think that happens to a lot of people. Or you at some point you may exit, and then money's not an issue.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm just going to go hang out for a while.
Yeah.
Because then eventually it's like, oh, now I've got some other ideas to create some other things.
I think for me, you know, coming from a background of writing and photography, like I would describe myself as a creative more than an entrepreneur. You know, I love creating stuff, and originally I loved talking to people and building a story out of it, and then I loved going to a wedding and building a visual story out of a wedding, or a visual story out of a rock climb. And, you know, here we are basically doing the same thing, creating like experiences and a business structure out of kind of not much, you know? And so I think that I'm going to remain a creative in some way, and I'm sure it'll involve entrepreneurial stuff, and it'll probably involve real estate. And I just don't know what that looks like yet. I have a pretty good idea of what it will be, but, you know, like I said, we'll see.
So last thing, somebody's out there, there's a young Nathan trying to find his path, and like, oh, I'm trying to decide if, you know, should I buy my first house? Should I get my first rental investment property? But they're, you know, nervous and scared. How would you, what words of wisdom would you provide to someone like that?
Buy the ticket, take the ride.
Yeah.
100%. You know, like I get really nervous right now about certain things. I don't get nervous about buying a house any longer, but I get nervous about these like monumental changes in our business. You know, switching management softwares, my God, that's complicated. You know, we did that a couple of years ago, and I remember Matt, one of the managers, one of my business partners, he's just like, rip the Band-Aid off, dude. And I was like, I don't know, Matt. And he's just do it. And we did it, and there was no problem. It was fine. But, you know, you like get stuck in your head, worrying about this or that, or failure, or consequences, or whatever. And it's just like, you gotta just go do it. It's never gonna be perfect.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many people, God, I even think about like ex-girlfriends who, like, I've kind of like got disinterested in because they wouldn't do the thing. You know, they had a vision and a dream, and they would just be like, I don't know, I don't want to do that. And like, that's
Come on.
so unromantic in a way, you know? Yeah, you just gotta you gotta do the thing. I'm married to a woman who does the thing.
Yeah.
Whatever
yeah.
it is, she's just like, hell yeah,
She's,
let's
yep,
go.
Here, I got an idea. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Then go.
And like everybody thinks she's crazy, but she goes and does it. And like, that's super inspiring.
Yeah.
And it's all going to be all right. I think that's one of the things that I've learned from her actually is it's going to work out. If you do the thing, that shows that you have the commitment. And if it doesn't work out, you have the commitment to make it work.
And you'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out.
Take that first step, the first leap, and
It's huge.
and go down that path. Because
Yeah.
it's hard, difficult, but it's extremely rewarding.
And like at the end of the day, I always, actually my friend Amos, his big line is, what's the worst that can happen? I can come up with a lot of bad things that can happen, but they're all recoverable.
Yep.
Like what's the worst that can happen? Okay, I buy a house and it doesn't work and I sell it. All right,
Yep.
I got to sell it.
Didn't quite work out how I thought, but you end up learning something from it. But you're
that's
still upright, and you're like, hey, now I can go on to the next thing.
That's the thing. It's like even learning something, like we just looked at, we just look at dollars in and dollars out. And it's like, so like back to what we were talking about, like doing a mastermind, for example, it's so hard to put a value on learning because it's not a tangible thing. But I can't tell you how much money I've lost along this journey, trying things out that didn't work out. And it's like, okay, a good example of this is a couple of years ago, I wanted to like test out the way that Airbnb, how do I explain this quickly? Basically, like Airbnb would have this fee system, and we could bury the fees into a management fee. I don't know how to explain this quickly. Long story short, I was fooling around with the fee structure on my properties, and I wound up losing about $15,000, on my own properties before. And so I took this loss and I didn't roll it out to our portfolio as a whole. Okay, you could just say that sucked, I lost $15,000. But at the same time, like I learned something that nobody in the industry was willing to go and learn. And now I know that you can't do that because you're going to lose money. And you have all these influencers out in the world saying, do this, do this, do this. And everybody's doing it. And I tried it and it didn't work. And they're not going to know that it's not working. So like to me, it taught me skepticism. It taught me about A/B testing things. Like all of these things that I learned out of that is like worth a lot more than $15,000.
At the time, you're like, I lost some money, but then in hindsight, it was valuable money well spent, and you end up getting a big return because you took the time to sit back and like, okay, what did I just learn from all this?
Like you don't just learn that the thing doesn't work, you learn systems, you learn how to test stuff, you learn how to be skeptical of advice. Like you learn these you learn these lessons that don't have like a set dollar value on them. But then you take those lessons and then you apply that whole mindset of skepticism and the value of A/B testing and blah, 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 and you apply it to a business where we're looking at a $12 million revenue next year. Like that's a lot of money that I learned for $15,000. That I'm going to get a lot more than 15 grand out of that at scale. And so I'm fine with it. Even though like maybe 5 years ago, I would be like, no way, I don't want to learn that.
Yeah, I suppose some lessons are more expensive than others, but if you learn from it, then in hindsight you'll end up figuring out like, oh, because this happened to me in the past, it was expensive. I changed what I did, and now I've got a big, I got a big payoff just because I went through that experience.
Yeah,
I think that's what you just need to do. Yeah. Well, cheers to all your great success, and
thanks for everything.
Yep. And your path is just bigger and brighter every day as it goes forward.
Last thing, because we're on film here, but like I remember I was in my home on a snowy, like April day when we refinanced, probably early April, maybe late March. I don't remember. That's when I called you up and I was like, Rich, no, actually that was when the refinances went through on my properties after COVID. And I remember calling you up literally in tears, thanking you for getting me out of that. And here we are now.
Yep.
Pretty cool.
Yep. We're having great conversation and a whiskey.
What a journey.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exciting times.
Yep.
Well, thanks again. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.